Hello and welcome back to my channel. Welcome, take a seat, grab a hot chocolate through the screen, have one, there you go. My name is Lena Norms and I am a book goblin. I really like books. If you didn't see my video at the beginning of this month, I read 51 books last year in 2019, and in 2020 I plan to read even more. And if I know what's good for me, I know that I don't know what's good for me. I've really been enjoying growing this amazing community in the Gumption Club. It's a Patreon only group you can join for as little as $1, and in that you're allowed to follow me on Goodreads because my Goodreads is secret, but also you can ask me at any time for any kind of book recommendation, and I often return the favour. I often go, does anybody know a book about this? Has anybody read a book like this? And we have great discussions about it. So when I was formulating my TBR, my to be read pile for 2020, I thought I would listen to this absolutely amazing hive mind of intelligent people and ask them what their favourite books were of 2019 so I could copy them. Because if you can't make your own plan, lick your finger, put it to the wind, and copy somebody you think's cooler than you. And I think everybody in the Gumption Club is much cooler than me, and they had some really interesting choices of books they read last year, and I have picked out 10 of them I would like to copy. I thought this might be helpful for anybody who is formulating their own 2020 TBR list, and also for those looking at how you pick stuff. I pick books. Okay, so here's how I pick books, actually. Do you know what? I have a theory about this. Tangent permitted. I choose books because it's in an area I've already enjoyed but don't feel like I've got everything out of. For fiction, this might be tropes. My favourite tropes are circus environments, trips, discussions about nationhood. What else do I like? Enemies become friends, aging, story behind the baddie, those kind of things. I'm sure there's more. For non-fiction, I love anything about trees, how to have better conversations and arguments, hidden histories, folklore. So that's one way I pick books. Two, I pick books based on an area that I know is a blind spot for me. I think part of the amazing thing about reading is that you can find a lot of things that won't get funding in other ways. So I have very strong feelings about how even if you love film and you love documentaries and you love music and you love this stuff, a lot of that takes budget, it takes sign-off, it takes audience justification. If you want a film to be made, a lot of people that have maybe a lot of biases need to believe that there is an audience that will be interested in it. And usually it has to have examples of things that have worked before. Now, it's not to say that the publishing world is exempt from those rules, but to write a book, you don't need a budget. You don't need to pay actors. You don't need to buy a set. You don't need things to be realistically possible or able to be built by CGI. You can just create it. And the budgets for books are a lot lower. More than any other industry, I think, publishing has pockets of funding that they will throw onto things that they're just really not sure whether they'll work. Especially with the incentive of prizes and stuff like that, there is a chance that something very obscure, something that hasn't been done before, will be gambled on in a way that it can't have been before, because it's just one person, you just need to pay one person. And even if you can't pay that one person, or that one person isn't paid, they may well self-publish, and then you can see, you get the idea. I think that if you're going to find new innovative ideas, logically, odds on, the place you're going to find them is books. And the place that you're going to find marginalised voices, people that you haven't heard from before. Obviously still marginally, still less than we probably should, but more likely. So the second category of the way I pick books is on the belief that my reading hobby is there to supplement a inevitably wanting education that everybody has received to some extent. I like books from voices I haven't heard from before. I like books from countries I've never been to. I like books in translation. I like books from big life experiences I've never had before, like grief. Books about topics that aren't my specialisation, like, see, I said specialisation, that's how you know I'm an arts kid. My speciality, science is what I'm saying, maths, genetics, things like that. In approachable, funny ways, I'm not going to actually read a textbook. I'm not in that kind of level of self-sabotage. And the third one is form. So that can either be genuinely the cover looks really good, and sometimes the cover looking good is a justified way of deciding whether you want to read a book, because somebody spent time on that cover, somebody spent money on that cover, obviously they care about this book because the cover is phenomenal. The length, I love short books, I love short memoir, I love long books that have multiple perspectives and like multi-generations of characters. The reasons that show why the book is long, i.e. the Everstory. And I love audiobooks read by somebody who's incredible at reading audiobooks, or the person who wrote the book. So there's some examples of the framework I think I probably subconsciously use when picking books, but here are 10 examples of books that have been recommended by people of the Gumption Club, and I'm very excited to read. A good example is the first book on the list. It is When All Is Said by Anne Griffin. This has been recommended by Karina. She says it's very thoughtful and beautifully written and encourages us to think of the elderly as complex people rather than just old people. When All Is Said and Done is the story of Maurice Hannigan, who over the course of the Saturday night in June orders 5 different drinks at the Ramford House Hotel. With each, he toasts a person vital to him in his life: his doomed older brother, his troubled sister-in-law, his daughter of 15 minutes, his son far off in America, and his late lamented wife. This sounds amazing because of the concept. It also feeds into some things I'm already interested in: personal story, old people, grief, and it fulfills one of my resolutions for reading, which is to read more Irish authors. I've also already seen this book a lot on social media, which does play into how I think about a book, to be honest, is if a lot of people have mentioned it on social media and praised it, even if those people are random people, just the frequency at which I've been seeing this book around persuades me that I think it is something worth investing 6 to 10 hours in. Vicky has recommended to me Girl, Woman, Other. She says this was so well written and beautifully woven together. It's heartbreaking and hopeful. I loved it. Combination, heartbreaking and hopeful. I'm very interested in Bernadine Evaristo's work. She recently won the Man Booker Prize for Girl, Woman, Other, so I'm incredibly interested to see what's in it. It apparently spans lots of different characters, which is again a reason for it being so long, which is fine. I'm up for that. And I listened to an extract of the audiobook, and the audiobook sounds pretty solid. So I'm very excited to read Girl, Woman, Other. Thank you so much, Vicky. The History of Beads by Marja Lundy. This has been recommended to me by Freedy. Now, I have been looking for climate change fiction to read for a long time, and if you have any recommendations for me, please do leave them in the comments, because I'm fascinated by that new genre. Or is it new? Let's be honest, God wrote the ultimate climate change fiction. It's about how the extinction of bees will affect us. It switches between 3 different stories, one set in 1852 in England, one set in 2007 in the US, and one set in China in 2098. It's as gripping as well as thought-provoking. Oh, that sounds so good. It was the first in 4 climate change themed fiction books. Ooh, so if you'd like to read, I definitely recommend. So she's written more books about that too. Into it. Sign me up. The History of Bees. The next one is Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. This was recommended to me by Bridget. Again, I just looked up the audiobook and it sounds... It's got a regional accent reading the audiobook, which is a big sell for me because I don't listen to enough audiobooks, or maybe there aren't enough audiobooks made with regional accents, regional UK accents that is. So the audiobook narrator has a northern accent, which I'm very excited about. She says it's a haunting book, beautifully written, and is so relevant for exploring people's attitudes towards Brexit and the current rhetoric of trying to get back to Britain's glory days. It also explores the class divide and the impact that has on how you grow up. It's a really short book, but one I haven't stopped thinking about since I read it. Again, I love books when people are like, so I read this book ages ago, but I haven't stopped thinking about it. Then I'm like, sold. I'm interested in the amount of books that have been coming out about Brexit fiction. Brexit fiction? I don't know about this book, but perhaps what people mean. Why is this steaming up? Is it steaming up? Am I going crazy? Is that books that further investigate nationhood in this national intelligence apocalypse we seem to be living through here in the UK. I love that, and it's short. It's not only that I'm lazy that I like short books or I want to hit like a target, it's also that I think it might take longer and more skill on average to write a good short book than it does to write a good long book. And that's a generalisation, but it's just a feeling that I have, and especially as somebody who's trying to write a bloody book and is really struggling to keep it short, I now see the skill in writing an impactful, character-driven, short book. Something I may never be capable of. Burgers by Travis Alabanza. This was recommended by Lowie, long-time Gumption Club member. They say, the Burger Show toured this year and it was an amazing companion read, but would be just as good to read as a standalone. Travis is a trans, gender non-conforming person of colour and offers a nuanced yet easy to understand perspective of living as a black, genderqueer person. I actually saw Travis perform in London a little while ago. Absolutely loved them, and I really love this recommendation. I think it is a perspective that I need to read more stuff around, and I'm so up for it, especially because it's a play script. I love reading play scripts. If anybody would like a video on the play scripts I like reading, let me know, but that is a fave genre of mine to read. So, very excited. We Are the Weather by Jonathan Safran Foer. Now, Jonathan Safran Foer wrote this book that everybody tells me to read called Eating Animals. Now, I haven't read it. I'll tell you why. Because I know if I read it, I will become a vegetarian, and that terrifies me. Obviously, you can cutting down on meat quite a lot. I don't know if anybody else feels like this in the comments, but it's something that I have avoided, and I'm ashamed to say that I have avoided reading. However, We Are the Weather is his new book about climate change, and apparently I have heard that it talks again about the ethics of our eating habits and explains in a different way why it's important, and some cutting down solutions rather than cutting out solutions. So I'm interested. Frida says, perhaps biased for loving the author prior to reading the book, but honestly it's a piece of art. A streamlined but also utterly personal text about environmental issues and the massive impact that animal agriculture has on climate change. It really captures the complicated relationship people have with the contribution to the cause, while also suggesting methods about how. Very fitting read for the year and the decade. I am 100% up for this, Frida. I'm up for the challenge of reading it, of responding honestly to it, and of getting rid of my panic around reading the books about changing my diet, because changing my diet and limiting my diet is something that has a lot of like emotional implications for me and weaves into my very complicated relationship with food. So I'm really interested to read We Are the Weather. I think that's a great recommendation for me. Thank you so much, Frida. The next one is a recommendation from Jenny. Again, long-time Gumption Club member, has attended lots of the live Gumption Club events and absolutely loved having Jenny in the group. So thank you, Jenny, for being in. Red, White and Blue by Casey McQuiston. Now, my friend Lex loves this book and has been going on about it a lot, and I'm very curious to read it. And I also need to insert a few more light reads into my year. I feel like last year I had a heavy year of subjects sometimes, and I really need to start interspersing that with funner books that are a bit more lighthearted. This sounds amazing. For those of you who don't know the premise of Red, White and Royal Blue, I'll tell you, because it sounds phenom. What happens when America's first son falls in love with the Prince of Wales? When his mother became president, Alex was promptly cast as the American equivalent of a young royal. Handsome, charismatic and genius, his image is pure millennial marketing gold for the White House. There's only one problem. Alex has beef with the actual prince, Henry, across the pond. When the tabloids get held of photos involving Alex Henry altercation, the US and British relations have a turn for the worse. Now, I forgot to include another category to my How I Choose Books ecosystem, and that is mad premises. Like, a premise that I don't think is possible, or a premise that I don't think an author could pull off, is exactly what I want to read. For the same reason you can't look away from a car crash, or a beautiful piece of art like those rocks that balance on top of each other in meditation, on the front of meditation CDs. Like, it's either going to be a mess or a masterpiece. And because I trust Jenny, I know that this is probably going to be a masterpiece, and I'm very excited. The next one is I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. This is a recommendation from Lizzie. First off, love the cover of this book. Stunning. The blurb is great as well. Perfect Mexican daughters do not go away to college. They do not move out of their parents' house after high school graduation. Perfect Mexican daughters never abandon their family. But Julia is not your perfect Mexican daughter. That was Olga's role. But a tragic accident on the busiest street in Chicago leaves Olga dead and Julia left behind to reassemble the shattered pieces of her family. It's not long before Julia discovers that Olga might not have been as perfect as everyone thought. Love sibling dynamics in books, love the mystery, love the perspective, because again, it's not one that I read about a lot and would like to learn more about. Lizzie says, I read it alongside some of my students and they loved it too and said it was very real to their experiences as a first generation American immigrant. Again, when a book is representing a certain group of people and people who are members of that group say, this is how it feels, this is a great representation of how this is, I'm even more likely to pick it up because I'm like, great, I trust you. So that's incredible. Thank you so much, Lizzie. And then finally, this is a little bit of a cheat one. I saw this recommendation in the comments of my 2019 Best Books of the Year video, and I thought it was really great, again, because I want to read more Irish authors. I love the way Seashell Kisses describes it. I would recommend, if you haven't read it already, Emmeline Pine's Notes to Self. I think it's right up your alley in so many ways. Pine is an English lecturer at University College Dublin, and the collection is stunning. It's published by Tramp Press, which are a small independent press, again, which I'm like... It's a collection of essays, again, love collections of essays, where Emily boldly confronts the past to better understand herself, her relationships, and her role in society. Tackling subjects like addiction, fertility, feminism, and sexual violence, and how these subjects intersect with legislation, these beautifully written essays are at once fascinating and funny, intimate and searingly honest. And also, I looked up the audiobook, and the audiobook is read by Emily Pine. Love when the author reads their own non-fiction work. And Emily has this amazing, beautiful, warm voice. Her Irish accent's lovely, and I'm so up for listening to that audiobook. Sold Seashell Kisses. Thank you for unintentionally adding to my 2020 TBR list. Those are all of the books that I want to include in my reading of 2020. I will update you on whether I read them and what I think about them. Are there any other books I should be considering for my 2020 TBR list? Would you like to see my entire of my 2020 TBR list? Well, if you join the Gumption Club, you could be part of recommending me more books. You can get on-demand recommendations from me for books. If you're looking for stuff to read in 2020, I can definitely help you out with that. And you'll be able to add me on Goodreads and see my TBR list. On top of lots of other things, you get 200 unlisted videos on this channel that nobody else can see, access to a secret Facebook group where we chat every day about getting shrewd and spirited in our own lives, a free audio poetry collection read by me, a free short story read by me, and a Patreon only podcast with me and my boyfriend Craig. We recently recorded one about books, especially Craig's recent discovery and love of Kazura Ishiguro. The links to find out how to join the Gumption Club will be below. You can do it for as little as $1. And if you want to keep on top of other stuff I'm reading, you can follow me on Instagram at Lena Norms, where I'm always posting about the books that I've received and I'm reading and I've loved. So do follow me on there if you'd like those. What other bookish videos would you like this year? Tell me in the comments below. I'm taking requests right now and planning my 2020 to be filmed list. So let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Links. Oh, did you hear that click? Thank you so much for watching. Lena's 30 this year. I'll see you on my next one. Frog Snog out.